Today we're making a layered nut roast that is the perfect centerpiece for your Christmas dinner. I know what you're thinking, nut roast, that bland, dry and crumbly dish that they serve up at your local pub, but that is not this recipe. For this nut roast, we make a base recipe full of hearty vegetables, herbs and umami goodness. Then we create 4 layers, each with its own festive flavor, from nutmegs by spinach to a warming harissa sweet potato. And we're not done there, it's finished with a cranberry glazed, which is just a cherry on the cake or the cranberry on the nut roast. Anyway, put behind you those dry nut roasts and give this recipe a go. Oh, and by the way, my name is George, I've been a chef for 10 years and I post a new cooking video every Wednesday and Sunday, so be sure to subscribe and let's get cooking. Get a pan over a medium heat, and then once your pan is hot, add a good drizzle of olive oil, probably about 2 tablespoons. If you want to go oil-free, then just add a splash of veggie stock. We'll then add in our onion, finely chopped celery. Same goes for the carrot, we're just going to finely chop. Also going in with a nice pinch of sea salt, just to help sweat down these vegetables. And we're going to cook these for about 6 to 8 minutes until they start to soften. For the mushrooms, we're just going to do a sort of small dice. I prefer this over grating them or putting them in a food processor. I just find they stay a bit more moist and juicy. But if you want to save time, then the food processor or the grater is definitely going to be your friend here. And I'm definitely going to be using the stems of the mushroom. I just separate them so that they're easier to chop. So this has had 8 minutes. I'm going to add a little extra drizzle of olive oil, which is going to help fry the mushrooms. I'll also add in the minced garlic now, the fresh rosemary and thyme, plus some dried sage. And now we'll just cook this down until the mushrooms have released their moisture and everything starts to caramelize a little bit. This has had another 6 minutes, I'd say, and it's looking really nice. All the veggies are lovely and soft, and most of the moisture has been evaporated. You don't want to dry it out completely though, as we want this to be a lovely moist nut roast. Next to go in is the chopped chestnuts, and we'll just stir those through. Then for some lovely rich umami goodness, we're going to add a teaspoon of Marmite. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know I love adding Marmite to these sort of dishes. Just adds so much flavor. And then some tomato puree. Let's go for about a tablespoon. And just a dash of soy sauce, about a teaspoon. And then just stir that through. We want to get the tomato puree really nice and caramelized, sweet and rich in flavor.
What are you waiting for?
Rather than sort of fresh and almost bitter. And then the final ingredient for this stage of the cooking is to add some balsamic vinegar to deglaze the pan and add a nice sort of sweet, fruity tang. And then you can turn the heat off. Smells absolutely incredible. And then you can just leave that to cool for now. For the flax egg, I've got 2 tablespoons of ground flax and I'm adding 4 tablespoons of warm water and then just whisk to combine. If you're getting the ground flax you get from the supermarket, typically it's not ground quite enough. So it's a good idea to grind it even more in the blender like I've done. And we'll just set that aside to become a nice sort of jellified mixture, which will help bind the nut roast. For the nuts, I'm just going to coarsely process them. If you don't want to use nuts, that's absolutely fine. You could use seeds such as sunflower or pumpkin seeds. You could also use some cooked brown rice or quinoa. Another option is to use red lentils that have been soaked in warm water, drained and then processed into a sort of fine mix. To the base cooked mix, we're going to add some fresh breadcrumbs. I've got some brown ones here. I literally just blended up some breadcrumbs in the food processor. And if you're gluten-free, then just use gluten-free breadcrumbs. Then we'll add our mixed nuts, the flax egg, or eggs plural, as we've got 2 in here, and then just give it all a good mixing. You could use this as just a really simple nut roast. You don't have to do the 4 layers, but I would definitely recommend it. Make sure it's really thoroughly mixed. So that is your base nut roast mix. You can bake it as it is and just have a simple nut roast, or you can make a real showstopper and do the layered nut roast that we're going to make now. So I've just divided the base mix into 4 portions. These 3 we're going to add some additional flavors to, And then the fourth one we're going to put into the tin straight away. In goes the standard nut roast mix. When portioning the nut roast, I added slightly more to this portion as the other ones are having additional ingredients added. And I've lined this with greaseproof so we can easily just lift it out, once cooked of course. And I'm just going to use a fork to press this down into the tin. So that is layer one, and now we're going to make the beetroot layer. This is just some cooked beetroot from a supermarket. I've grated it and given it a really good squeeze to get out most of the moisture. Then we're adding some parsley and a zest of about half an orange, or I've actually got a satsuma here, which will do fine. This is going to be a really nice earthy, sweet and herby layer. And just give that a good mix through. Make sure you're tasting each layer as you go, making sure it's got enough salt, pepper, or any other seasonings. There you go, that is the second layer in the nut roast. And that will just go straight on top of the first layer. If you wanted to, you could do this in a circular cake tin, that would be quite nice. A springform one would make it really easy to get out. There you go, that's layer two. We'll now move on to the spinach layer. Start with your spinach. This is just frozen chopped spinach, which I have squeezed as dry as possible. Then of course, we're not just adding spinach, we're going to add some chopped dried cranberries. Lovely and festive. Some nutritional yeast. A good grating of fresh nutmeg, once again making this really nice and festive. Perfect for Christmas. Nutmeg adding a lovely warming, spicy note. And then just a touch of Dijon mustard. And give that a really good mix, breaking up the spinach as much as possible. And that is your spinach and cranberry layer ready to go. And that is the penultimate layer. Now onto the roast sweet potato and harissa layer. First up, a couple teaspoons of smoky harissa paste, about half a teaspoon of ground cumin. I'm going to use some diced roast sweet potato, but you could use squash if you wanted to. And then some sun-dried tomatoes. I've just quickly diced them up as well. You know the drill now, we're just going to mix this through. And that is the fourth and final layer, harissa, roast sweet potato, and sun-dried tomato. This is a pretty mega nut roast, so we'll bake it for about 30 minutes with the foil on, then another 20-30 minutes with the foil off, and then we'll add the cranberry glaze, which is really delicious. While that's baking, if you want recipe, PDFs, early access to my videos, and bonus content, be sure to check out my Patreon. You can scan this QR code or check out the link in the description box. For an optional but very tasty addition to this nut roast, we're going to make a quick glaze, starting with some cranberry sauce, then a little ketchup, light soy sauce or tamari, maple syrup, and balsamic vinegar for that lovely fruity tang. And just simply whisk that all together. Okay, so I actually ended up giving it a whopping 70 minutes as it is a really chunky nut roast and it's also quite moist. You've got all the moisture from the sweet potato, the sun-dried tomatoes, spinach, beetroot, all those ingredients. You know it's ready when it's dry on top, slightly golden, and you can see at the edges it's starting to sort of come away from the sides. So now we're going to pour on that beautiful glaze. I got the idea for this glaze from another YouTuber. I believe they're called Vegan Rika or Rika. I'm not quite sure how you say it, but I'll link their channel in the description box. Theirs is very similar, it just didn't have any cranberry sauce in it, which I thought would be a nice addition. So just spread that out evenly over the top of your nut roast. This adds a really nice sticky, tangy and sweet topping to your nut roast. So that's going to go in for another 15 minutes, I would say, until the glaze is lovely and rich and sticky. You should then be able to easily lift it out using the parchment paper, like so. It's holding together, that is always a good sign. Let's just reveal that, reveal the sides now. Oh yes, that's looking good. And just look at that, that looks absolutely beautiful. I am very excited to take a slice out of this. Okay, now for the fun part, time to take a slice. Nice. And you can see we've got the base layer, the beetroot layer, the spinach layer, the roast squash layer, and then that beautiful glaze on top. And of course, if we're going to taste it, we've got to get some gravy on there. So tasty. You can really taste all the different layers. It's really good fun. It also holds together really nicely. It's not dry, it's not crumbly, and it's really moist from all those extra ingredients. I've just absolutely demolished this whole slice. Now that may look like a lot of work, but it really isn't too bad. It took me about 3 to 4 hours, and I was filming it as well. So just put on some Christmas tunes and make yourself an amazing Christmas centerpiece. You can also just choose one of the layers that you like the most and just sort of scale it up, or you can take ingredients from different layers and make your own nut roast using the base mix. Or even simpler, just do the base recipe. It's really delicious just on its own. You'll just need to cook it for a little bit less, but I'd definitely recommend putting the glaze on there. That is really tasty. For more recipes perfect for a Christmas dinner or a roast, check out this video.